Ask any kid what they like best about Halloween, and I bet you they scream out candy. When I was younger, I remember getting pillowcase after pillowcase of the sweet stuff, and we absolutely loved it. But now that I'm a little bit older, I'm starting to wonder just how bad all that sugar was for us. So this week, I took to the road to ask some local experts their thoughts on Halloween candy and just how dangerous it really is. The first expert on my list is public health nutritionist Stacy Weens.
Halloween is a fun time of year, and we definitely don't want to just take away from that. So if your kids do bring home a lot of candy, just try to help them control how much they're eating in the day and control when they're eating it. Try to have it maybe with a snack or with a meal, and maybe allow like 2 to 3 small pieces a day.
But is too much candy really that bad for you?
The blood sugar will definitely be very high if they're eating a lot of candy at once. It could make them sick to the stomach. And also it's going to make them feel really bad after they eat the candy. So that's why we want to try to avoid them binging on a lot of that candy right away after. Like maybe a good idea is to feed your kids a healthy meal before they go out trick-or-treating so that they're not hungry while they're trick-or-treating and they're not tempted to be eating it as they're going along. And then maybe when they get home, you can agree that they can have 2 to 3 pieces, you know, because they can enjoy, you know, the evening. And then the rest goes away and you can dole it out as you have, you know, agreed with them. There's no healthy amount of candy to eat in a day. It's not part of the food guide. It's not a recommended food. But of course, we enjoy treats occasionally. So during Halloween, it's probably expected that they are going to have some candy. You wouldn't want to restrict it completely, but maybe keep it to 2 or 3 small pieces a day. And even for dental health, you might want to encourage the children to eat it all at once so that there's less, you know, that you don't want them grazing on it all day long. It just creates less of the sugar in the mouth for an extended period of time.
And that leads me to my second expert, dentist Dr. Neki Jamal.
The most important thing I find is we have to eat our candy in moderation. Of course we want kids to have candy, but we just have to limit the amount that we're going to have. The best time to eat Halloween candy is right after supper or right after a meal. We have bacteria in our mouth, okay, and what happens is whenever we eat candy, the bacteria in our mouth, or sugar bugs as we tell the kids, is that they metabolize or they eat the sugar from the candy, and they actually create a mild acidic environment in your mouth, which eventually leads to holes in the outside parts of our teeth called enamel, and leads to holes in those and leads to cavities. So that's why we don't like having too much candy. Obviously, a lot of the candy out there isn't great. The harder the candy, the more chance that you're going to either break a tooth or break a filling. The stickier the candy, the more chance you're actually going to pull out a filling or pull out a cap off a kid's tooth. Like with your toffees out there, especially the harder toffees that take a while to loosen up, and then by the time they're loose, they're really, really sticky. They'll pull out some fillings, and we see it all day, every day, but now is kind of the worst time of year for that. So we like to prevent those types of foods for sure.
So how do our experts suggest we go about limiting our kids' candy intake?
So one tip that would help parents kind of control how much candy their kids are eating is to maybe agree with the kids that they could keep 25% or some percentage of the candy they bring home, and then they can pick their favorites out. And the other candy could be donated to a charity or given, you know, kept for another party later in the year. Some families even freeze their leftover candy and add it to like a gingerbread house at Christmas time. And so if you've decided that the kids can maybe keep 25% of their candy, then you might agree that they can have 2 to 3 small pieces a day. And the rest could go into a container and store it up on a shelf in a cupboard. And that way, probably, depending how young the child is, they might even forget about it in a few days or a week. So that's one way of kind of limiting how much they're eating.
Here at Wayside Dental, we have the Halloween buyback program where we're going to offer it to all kids under 12. And what we're going to do is for each pound of candy that you bring in back to us for the 2 weeks following Halloween, we're going to give you a ticket, and then we'll do a draw for an iPad at the end of the 2 weeks in there. So the more kids, the better, and we want to get that sugar off the streets.
So like most treats, candy is fine in moderation. In fact, when it comes to trick-or-treating, the dangers often lurk elsewhere.
As a parent, my first concern would be is visibility for my child. And the things that you can do is make sure that costumes are lighter colored or have reflective striping on them. Flashlights are always a great idea. And with an increase in visibility, you want to make your children obviously more visible, especially when they're crossing the streets. So we want to remind parents to make sure your kids are trick-or-treating up one side of the street, cross at the corners when it's safe to do so, and work the other side of the street, as opposed to zigzagging back and forth across the streets from house to house.
I'd like to thank all my experts for their great tips on having a safe Halloween, and we have more tips and tricks for healthy Halloween snacks if you're having a festive party this time of the year from public health nutritionist Stacey Weens. So head on over to our Facebook or Twitter page to get more of her great tips on holiday entertaining. And when HR comes back after this break, we're going to take a look at the disease that's affecting more than 9 million Canadians. Please stay with us.